the thing. You can like Graham Platner. That's totally fine. You can like him. I think what you can do though is just hand wave away any and all criticism that people have of him and just say that if we disagree with him or don't like him, we don't actually care about progress. Because when you do that, you don't actually give him a chance to actually take accountability for his own actions, and you try to protect him from the very natural consequences of his own actions. And yes, he has tried to atone for the things that he has done in the past, and that's totally fine. People are not the worst thing they've ever done, but that takes time. And in the sort of grand scheme of politics, we don't know Graham Platner. He has never held elected office before. He's not been in the public spotlight that long, so we are all still getting to know him. So it's natural that many people are just not yet willing to forgive him and may never forgive him. And again, that's just a natural consequence of his behavior.
Or not, it's true that Graham Platner is a sex pest. I need you to think deeply about how quickly, as a Democrat, as a liberal, you decided that was not a game ender for you. Could turn out to be wrong. Everyone was super quick to jump on board with someone who was accused of being a sex pest. He's somehow better than the other sex pests in our government. What about no sex pests, everyone? Why is that not a deal breaker for us? Everything's so dire, we have to have the sex pests.
I think Democrats have ceded whatever moral ground they once upon a time had. You can't make a moral or ethical case against Trump or any other Republican and say, but Susan Collins is so terrible, we're going to encourage voters in Maine to elect a guy who's been alleged to have a serious physical misconduct against women. Now, I'm a dad of a daughter. I can't imagine excusing that type of behavior. Now, as a conservative, I've called out things on my side, as you know very well. And so for me, Congresswoman, I get the premise of your argument, but I just couldn't in good conscience or faith say support some person with these serious allegations.
Yeah.
You still have the governor.
And
you still have the governor.
I didn't say I
you still
would
have
vote
the governor
for him.
who voters could vote.
No.
What's up, family? Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll need you to sit with this question for a second. If a Republican candidate had abuse allegations from multiple women, a tattoo linked to Nazi imagery on his chest, and a documented history of locking women in rooms so they couldn't leave, what do you think the left would be saying right now? You already know the answer, right? We'll be hearing about it every hour on every channel, but the candidate we're talking about today is Graham Platner, the Maine Democratic Senate candidate. And according to a New York Times report, his ex-girlfriend, Lindsay Field, said he regularly grabbed her by the shoulders hard enough to leave marks, yanked her out of a cab by her wrist, twisted her arm behind her back, shoved her into a bedroom, and held the door shut from the outside so she couldn't get out. This isn't a rumor. This isn't opposition research. This isn't a New York Times. And we're going to break it all the way down.
Tote and Coke tattoo, the Nazi tattoo. How do you kind of?
Somebody said that they talked to somebody who had seen one of those or wore one of those, and it was silver, and it didn't even occur to him that it was the same thing. I think people are making as much of it as they can because they don't have a lot of substance around anything else. And if they did, we'd hear about it, believe me. They are trolling for dirt.
What if he has like a Israeli flag tattoo or something? Would that be a deal breaker?
For me?
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
That would be
Israeli? Yeah, because I don't support genocide, and he doesn't either. And that would show that he was being inconsistent. And he's been very consistent about that. Straight across.
Let's go back a few years because context matters here. And I don't want anyone to say I'm being unfair. When Brett Kavanaugh was nominated to the Supreme Court, the Democratic Party made, quote, believe all women the centerpiece of their entire argument. And I mean, they ran with it hard. Hakeem Jeffries himself was on record saying, women who come forward with allegations must be believed, or you end up enabling abusers. That was the standard. That was the line. Not a suggestion, not a guideline, a line. So fast forward to right now, and you got 3 women who spoke to the New York Times about Graham Platner, including Lindsay Field, who described being grabbed hard enough to leave marks on her shoulders, being yanked out of a cab by her wrist after an argument, having her arm twisted behind her back, getting shoved into a bedroom, and then having the doors held shut from the outside so she had no way out. And she said she eventually fell asleep in that room and left the next morning. Read that back slowly. Grabbed until it leaves marks. Arm twisted, shoved, locked in. That's not a quote unquote messy relationship. That's textbook physical intimidation. And if you heard that about a Republican candidate, every Democrat in the country would be standing at a podium calling it domestic abuse, because that's exactly what it sounds like. Now, I'm just calling for what it is. Check out this clip.
Are we just going to go down the rabbit hole?
Well, no, the
until
bar is
there's
in
no
hell
end?
with this current administration. The bar is in hell. We have allowed this president to come in and this blatant corruption, and we see it. Not we as in you, but the people have. His loyalists have. The people who are supposed to be a part of his cabinet have. And so the bar is now in hell. And so for Democrats to me, now and by the way, I am not excusing this man's behavior in any form or fashion. But what Scott is saying is like, listen, look where we are. No one's perfect. Fetterman said this, to your point, said this earlier today. What he was trying, and I'm paraphrasing, was like, all politicians have baggage. This just happens to be a candidate that has baggage.
Carrie, he's got an anti-Semitic tattoo on his chest. That should be automatic disqualification.
I'm not excusing
Period.
this man's behavior, but what I am telling you is you cannot say that with this president in office.
No, you can.
You cannot say that.
You can.
You cannot say
that. A guy who's wearing a tattoo saying, I hate people of this religion.
Okay, and I hate black people. I feel like this president is saying, I hate black people, and we're done. Oh, no, but he just has all the power of the government. He's rolling back. He's rolling back civil rights.
Wait, Carrie, I mean,
I'm not excusing this man's behavior, but I'm saying this is why people are okay with that.
You keep saying you're not excusing him. But what's happening is that he is being excused. The issue, I think, also that what this week demonstrates, this week kind of started with, oh, he was sending text messages, you know, into his, frankly, brand new marriage, by the way, to other women.
Wholly inappropriate.
So that's not great.
Wholly inappropriate.
Not great, maybe not a great thing. But then there is always this drip, drip, drip. You know, earlier this week, he had a meeting with Democrats where they asked him, was there anything else? He said there wasn't any. Elizabeth Warren attended the meeting. She said there's a big difference between marital issues and allegations of sexual assault. The people said Platner agreed and denied any credible allegations of assault were forthcoming. It's not a secret. I've had a messy, complicated life. He told them the worst of the rumors we've all heard are not true. 2 days later, the New York Times comes out with
that article about everything.
About everything. So it's like one of the problems is that you excuse this and this. Oh, and then trust me, there's going to be more.
And it needs to be said all day, every day. MAGA is the party of sexual abuse and pedophilia. MAGA is the party that props up sexual predators. It is trickle down sexual predation from Donald Trump all the way down to people in Congress, all the way down to his voters. These January 6th insurrectionists went and beat up cops. They took a shit in the Capitol. They wanted to hang Mike Pence. They wanted to kill Nancy Pelosi. They broke tons of laws. We all saw it on tape. And Trump rewarded them. He rewarded them. And these were the low-level actors, because he knows he and all of his rich friends paid to get all of these degenerates there. So every time you see a MAGA Republican tell you they're about law and order and they're pro-family, it is a goddamn lie. The Republican Party doesn't give a shit about families. They do not give a shit about children. They do not give a shit about life. Their policies always lead to death. And now we have a Republican Party that is a pedophile enabler movement. We even have the president's daughter and her husband building their own island.
There you have it, family. Jennifer Welch. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. So this is where it gets really hard to ignore, family, because we got Representative Ro Khanna. You know, he's a Democrat. Congressman from California has built a whole reputation on being anti-Epstein crusader, right? The guy who says he believes women and holds powerful men accountable. And this same man went out and campaigned for Graham Platner. Then at the very same event, he stood at a microphone and said, no one on our side should attack the woman who came forward, because Democrats believe in respecting the equality and the dignity of women. Right? He said that while campaigning for the man those women came forward about. And CNN's own reporters looked at each other on air and said they didn't know how you square those two things. Right? And when you look at it, right, he said, this is Ro Khanna. He believes the account of Maine Democratic Senate candidate Graham Platner's former girlfriend, Lindsay Fiefeld, and urged Platner's campaign to stop attacking her and the journalists who reported on allegations. He said, Khanna said, I believe her, and argues, I don't think our side should be attacking her, right? So this is also Democrat Representative Ro Khanna, right? Believe in respecting equality and the dignity of the woman that I was just telling you about.
Now, no one should make excuses for his past relationships, some of which were toxic and volatile, and no one on our side should attack the women who came forward. You know why? Because Democrats believe in respecting the equality and the dignity of women, and we always will. And we reject, unequivocally, misogyny. We reject it. But you know who else rejects it? Graham Platner. Now,
there you have it, right? So now, this is CNN with Dana Bash. The reporters looked at each other on air and said they didn't know how you square those two things. Think about that. When your own media can't find a way to defend you on camera, the gap between what you say and what you do is no longer subtle. It's sitting right out in the open for everyone to see.
Abby, one of the questions that I'm looking at is how they square those two arguments. Platner saying my past is being weaponized politically, and, unsaid there is what is being weaponized in addition to the Nazi tattoo, which he, covered up and claims that he didn't know was a Nazi tattoo, the Reddit posts about women, but more recently, the women coming out and making allegations of unsettling behavior. And then Ro Khanna at the same event effectively saying, we support women, we believe women. And how do you reconcile those two notions?
I think it's hard to, and I think the Democratic Party, the National Party, is having a hard time doing that.
Abby,
there you have it, right? And here's the plain English version of what's actually happening. Imagine a manager at a job who fires every single employee for showing up 5 minutes late. No exceptions, no mercy, no second chances. But then his favorite worker rolls in 2 hours late every day and nothing ever happens. At some point, you realize it was never about the rule. It was always about who they liked. And that's the situation right here. The believe all women, quote unquote, standard was never a principle. It was a tool. And the people who were supposed to lead on this, they made it worse. And then we get to Hakeem Jeffries, right? Hakeem Jeffries, family, this is where it stops being just embarrassing and starts being a real problem. Hakeem Jeffries is a top Democrat in the House of Representatives, the face of the party. The man reporters call first when something big happens. And when CNN sat him down and asked him directly about the abuse allegations against Graham Platner, he looked into the camera and said he hasn't followed it closely, quote unquote.
Well, let me say more generally, violence against women in any way, shape, or form is completely and totally unacceptable. And that should be clear to everyone, and everyone needs to draw that bright line in the sand. In terms of the allegations that have been waged with respect to this particular candidate for the Senate, I haven't followed it closely. I will continue to defer to Leader Schumer and Senator Gillibrand in terms of the best path forward in Maine. I haven't had a conversation with Ro Khanna about this. Listen, John, we're focused on trying to take back control of the House of Representatives.
Well, if you're focused on taking back the House of Representatives, you will also be very situationally aware of the individuals running as candidates when it comes to Democratic states, right? Because they are overall the synopsis and let alone the organizational member of the coalition of the Democrat Party and what it represents as a whole. extended just in tentacles throughout the states and districts Democrats represent. It's the same thing that goes for Republicans, right? So I call this, family, to save one's reputation, have selective amnesia. And his answer was, for his selective amnesia, is hasn't followed it closely. That was his answer. The top Democrat in the country hasn't followed it closely. Now, I want you to think about what that actually means in real terms, because this wasn't some local story buried in a small town paper. This was the New York Times. This was being asked about on every major network every single day. Reporters were bringing it up in every interview. His own party members were being pressed on it publicly. And Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of House of Democrats, wants you to believe he just hadn't got around to looking it up yet.
So Democrats, Leader Jeffries, including yourself, have argued for many years that women alleging instances of misconduct and abuse must be believed, or it enables abusers. You, for instance, wanted to pause Justice Kavanaugh's nomination over the allegation from Christine Blasey Ford that he attempted to sexually assault her in high school. But with Maine's Senate seat up for grabs, the standard does not seem to apply now. Listen to this.
So far, everything that has come out is a private matter between Graham Platner and his wife. Where I draw the line is if there are any credible allegations of abuse or assault or domestic violence.
But the New York Times interviewed 3 women who accused Platner of physical intimidation and abusive behavior, including ex-girlfriend Lindsay Fifield. Quote, she said he regularly grabbed her by the shoulders, sometimes hard enough to leave marks, and on one occasion yanked her out of a cab by her wrist after an argument when she wanted to stay in the car. During one argument, she recalled he twisted her arm behind her back, shoved her into a bedroom, and held the door closed from the other side so she couldn't get out, telling her to remain there until she was calm. Eventually, Ms. Fifield said she fell asleep and left the next morning. That sounds like domestic abuse to me, textbook domestic abuse. What happened to believe all women?
I haven't followed these allegations closely, but what I have said is that violence against women in any way, shape, or form is unacceptable. It's a red line, and nobody should cross that. And any accuser who comes forward has to be treated with dignity and respect. I haven't talked to Ro Khanna about this particular race, and in fact, I haven't gotten involved in this particular race because we're focused on taking back control of the House of Representatives so we can lower the high cost of living, fix our broken healthcare system, and clean up the corruption that is out of control in Washington, D.C. right now.
Okay.
That is his answer. He hasn't followed it closely. Once again.
So I've had a few things to say about Donald Trump going to the Knicks game. And, you know, at this point, it's game day. And I think Knicks fans just want to enjoy Game 3, the first home game that we've had in 27 years. But it also is not clear to me that Donald Trump is a big Knicks fan. I mean, does this guy even know the difference between Karl Rove and Karl Anthony Towns? I don't think so. He's just injecting himself into the NBA Finals because he always has to bring the MAGA circus into town.
Now, this is Hakeem Jeffries, right? He found time for going on national television to complain about President Trump attending the NBA Finals game. He had time for that. He tracked that closely enough to go on air and talk about it. So basketball, he's on top of domestic abuse allegations against a Democrat Senate candidate in the race. His party needs to flip the Senate. Somehow that one slipped through the cracks. And it gets more tangled from there because in the same interview, Jeffries told CNN that violence against women is a red line. You heard him, right? And completely unacceptable. His exact words. Then in the next breath said he hadn't looked into the allegations and was deferring to other senators on what to do. Like Ro Khanna, that he has to talk to. He hasn't, quote unquote talked to yet. You cannot do both of those things. You can't draw a red line and then act like you've never seen a line before. That's not nuance. That's avoidance dressed up to sound like leadership. Now, to be fair, family, I always want to give you both sides. Some Democrats have tried to frame this as a binary choice. The argument goes like this. Susan Collins is so dangerous, so extreme, that even a flawed candidate is better than leaving that seat in the Republicans' hand. I hear that logic. I understand why some people feel that way. But here's where it falls apart. Susan Collins voted to convict President Trump after January 6th. She's one of the Republicans Democrats use to point to as proof that reasonable Republicans existed. Now, to justify getting behind a candidate with abuse allegations and a Nazi-linked tattoo on his chest, they're calling Susan Collins a MAGA fascist at her core. That's the trade they made. That's the math they chose. And the scary part isn't even this one race. It's the pattern. The same thing played out with Jay Jones when Democrats rallied behind a candidate after deeply disturbing text messages surfaced because the letter next to his name was more important, as in being a Democrat, than what the evidence said about his character. Every time power is on the line, the standard disappears. And the people the party claims to protect are the ones who pay for it. The Bible says in Matthew chapter 7, verse 16, by their fruit you will recognize them, not their speeches, not their campaign ads, by what they actually do when it costs them something. When a party's only real standard is power, the people they say they're fighting for always end up paying the price. Let me know in the comments, though, if this changes how you see the Believe All Women movement going forward. I want to hear your thoughts, family. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate. All I'm saying, family, is to be objective. I'm not telling you what to think, but if you're going to set the standard, let the standard be the standard. Do not keep moving the goalposts and remixing the standard to when it's beneficial to you. That's my overall message, and that goes for anyone and everyone, politics, not politics, Democrats or Republican. And look, holding each other accountable is what keeps that standard set. On that note, family, love you guys. Thank you for rocking with me. Hope you guys got some value from this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.